Here we are. Last night, British warplanes, as part of a coalition, carried out a bombardment in the Middle East. RAF and American pilots flying into danger over the skies of Yemen, with our bombs hitting strategic targets. We await the full impact of the endeavour. But who are we fighting and why? Our strikes are targeting the Houthi rebels movement in Yemen, backed and armed by Iran, largely triumphant after coming out on top of 8 years of a vicious civil war. They hold Yemen's capital and much of the north of the country. For the last few months, since the Israel-Hamas war began, they've attacked ships passing through the Red Sea. Now, it's at this point we should mention their motto. It is this: God is great, death to America, death to Israel, curse the Jews, victory to Islam. They're quite unequivocal. They say their hijacking and missile firing is in support of Palestinians and that they're only targeting ships that are Israel-owned or heading to the Jewish state. This is, to put it politely, nonsense, since they're pretty much attacking almost everything. And it would be hardly OK, even if it was true. Whatever the politics, there is a huge side effect to all of this. The 15% of the world's trade that passes through the Red Sea on its way to largely Europe and us has turned around. Ships carrying rice, tea, electronics, furniture now travel 3,000 miles around Africa to avoid attack, seizure or even death. As a result, prices go up and supply chains slow down. And there is a principle at the heart of this conflict. Trade is meant to be free. You don't get to sit on your coastline and take potshots at passers-by, to strangle the world's commerce for gain or ideology. That's been an accepted rule for hundreds of years. In response to the attacks, the West has been clear. If you keep doing this, you bear the consequences. The Houthi response to the warnings: a barrage of missiles and attack drones 3 days ago, many aimed squarely at HMS Diamond. That's our ship in the region. At that point, it became an inevitability. The law on self-defence is very clear, and it's hard to argue with. The first airstrikes the UK launched were on attack drones and cruise missile facilities.
Initial indications are that those strikes have been successful. We'll continue to monitor the situation, but it's clear that this type of behaviour can't be met without a response. We need to send a strong signal that this breach of international law is wrong. People can't act like this with impunity, and that's why, together with allies, we've decided to take this action.
But of course, there's a risk to all of this. The Houthis have form. The war they'd previously won included years of being bombed by enemies like Saudi Arabia, using the kind of bombs and jets that are similar to the ones we are now sending.
Their strikes will not scare us. They have been bombarding us for 9 years and we have not been afraid for a single day. Will the strikes scare us now that we have the missile force, the navy, the men?
So there it is. They've been here before. And since the West has spent so long politely signalling its plans, a lot of Houthi weapons may have been hidden. And the Houthis are vowing a response.
The American and British enemies bear full responsibility for their criminal aggression against our Yemeni people. It will not go unpunished or unanswered. The Yemeni armed forces will not hesitate to target threatening sources and all hostile targets on land and sea.
So we need to know what that response might be, what we'll need to do, how long this could last, and what happens if anything goes terribly wrong. Let's hope we've learned lessons from Iraq and Afghanistan and Libya at last, and at least enough to decide what victory needs to look like. So with all of that in mind, do you support Britain's retaliation in Yemen? 0344 499 1000. Our lines are now open. Joining me in the studio, Ben Harris-Quinney, chair of the Bow Group. That's the world's oldest conservative think tank. And the Sun's defence editor, Jerome Starkey, is back with us. Good to see you both. I mean, Jerome, first of all, this was always going to be the stage we would get to, the moment that the Houthis started clearly signalling and taking warfare action, as it were. There was always going to be a response.
Well, certainly there came a point earlier this week when they had launched this